Now,
Yeah.
I know that you trained at the Isha Yoga Centre in South India. Can
Yes.
you tell us what was a typical day there like during your teacher training?
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Now, when I'm going to describe it, it's going to be even more hectic in terms of the kind of work that you're doing and the number of hours you're engaged in. But there was just such a difference in how I experienced both these versions of my life, right? So a typical day now, the Isha Yoga Center, the teacher training program is 21 weeks long. So it's about 5.5 months. And there's no break in between, like there's no weekend. So it's 21 weeks back to back every day, every single day for those 21 weeks. And the class starts at 5:30 in the morning with yoga practice. So you're ideally up at 4:30, if not later. And you're showering, getting ready, sort of just making your way to the session. And 5:30 to 9:30, we would have our morning practices. So that's 4 hours of yogic practices that you're doing. Post that, we would have brunch. And after that, we would have our noon session, which would be normally around 11:30, 12. We would be doing a lot of chanting, breathing practices, and studying different aspects of human anatomy, diet, Siddha medicine. We'd have like a snack or a juice or something after the noon session. Then we would have our evening practice session at 4. So you're empty stomach by the time you're coming for the second practice session. That would go on for about 2.5 hours. So roughly by 6:45, we would get free from that, and then go for our dinner. And post dinner, we would have a night session as well, so which would be normally around 8:30, and that would go on till 9:30. Ideally, it would usually be sessions where we're learning about other aspects of yoga, just meditativeness, and different, just so many aspects of this deep yogic science. And then you go to bed, you're exhausted completely. You pretty much are sort of, you've dozed off even before you hit the bed. Yeah, so it was pretty intense, the most intense
So
thing I've done in my life.
the most intense thing, that's amazing. Now, what is the key difference between the busyness before
Yeah.
and that very intense ongoing activity?
It's very different. In fact, and a very clear indicator of how different it was how I was feeling within, right? And not just emotionally, but also I was feeling energetic. I was feeling more alive. I was going through a day of like 16 to 18 hours of activity without feeling drained out. And this was on 2 meals in a day. The practices that we were doing, they give us a different kind of strength and energy to go through the day. The diet that you're consuming, the environment that you're in. And I think the most important thing was that I was just so grateful and so joyful to be there.
Yeah.
So I felt that there was no resistance, or even if there were moments of resistance, I found that melting away. And even now in my daily life, like there are times when I have to take classes that start at 6:30, which means I have to be up at 4 to be able to get ready, drive to work, get everything ready for session. But there's such a difference. I'm just doing it so much more joyfully. So I don't find, it doesn't feel like work in that sense. Yeah.
So you've taken that joy, and I think that different quality of attention, because for me, I think that's a key thing that we get with an authentic yoga practice, is that the quality of our attention changes, so that we're actually able to achieve more with less effort and with less output of energy. It's quite remarkable. One of the reasons I started this series is because there is so much half-baked information out there, and there are a lot of people who are very well-meaning, but they have either haven't been properly trained, or maybe they have been properly trained, but then they've decided to sort of change what they've been taught and maybe, add strange music or mix it up with some other kind of exercise practice. So you get this mishmash of yoga that actually is not authentic yoga. So what is the most common mistake that you see out there, and what should teachers do to correct that?
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So I think, just before I get into that, I want to quickly talk about, what yoga is essentially, because I feel that the reason all of this is coming up is because there is a very basic fundamental mismatch in terms of how yoga is being perceived and understood, right? So if I were to say yoga, like 90% of the people out there, maybe even 99%, would just think, it's stretching, getting into impossible postures, and wearing Lululemon pants and sort of putting up pictures on Instagram, because that is what the majority, and it's a sad case in India as well, because that is the perception of yoga that has been marketed and has been uh, propagated in some sense.
I just have to say, I love my Lululemon pants. I really do. I really do. But I completely understand and agree with what you're saying, and I support what you're saying, because that there is something about the marketing, the marketing piece, and then there's the real stuff. And what we want to do here is to start to market the real stuff. So yes, please carry on.
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, people think of yoga as an exercise form or a series of stretching practices. In essence, yoga means union. And this doesn't mean that you have to sit in a posture to be in union. When you're one with the cosmos, it could be through any different path, and there's so many different paths to do this. Hatha yoga is one of the paths to attain to that sort of ultimate union between you and the cosmos, or between you and the universal, or become one with God in some sense, whatever description it is that people would like to give to it. So Hatha yoga now is what is being seen as yoga in common parlance.
Yes.
But yoga essentially is union. And anytime the word yoga is attached to something, it means that it is a complete path to attain that union, right? So it could be bhakti yoga through devotion. It could be jnana yoga through self-inquiry. Or it could be karma yoga through activity. It could be kriya yoga, through yogic practices. And Hatha yoga, when we say Hatha yoga, now when Hatha has the word yoga attached to it, which means Hatha yoga is also a path in itself. So it is one of the paths to the ultimate. Now, when you understand this, and when you understand the significance of what it is that you're, of course, learning, and then people who are going on to teach are also offering it to others, then the kind of dilutions or distortions that you're comfortable making, or that that you actually think are maybe enhancements to the practice, you will be so resistant to doing that, or you will not feel comfortable doing that, because you've recognized what it is that you're offering.
Yeah.
So I think the main disconnect would come from people actually recognizing what it is that they're offering. Yoga is not beer yoga or goat yoga. It's not simply about the postures and the practice. It is so much deeper than that. And it took me a while, to be honest, to come to that, to arrive to that, because I had gone to different schools of yoga in that sense. And I understand that, everybody has their own philosophy behind it. And I mean this with the complete reverence and respect to all the teachers I've had before. But it wasn't until I found an actual yogi as a guru, like Sadguru, I did not experience what yoga is. I was, of course, getting physical benefit. I was getting psychological benefit. My mental health was better. But to actually experience that union hadn't happened. So now, coming to your question, that what are some of those distortions? I will not, and I don't want to really, I mean, no disrespect to anyone, but, just say, especially since we hold yoga in such high regard. And for me, it's an absolute, even beyond science, I feel like it's so sacred to me and to the teachers at Isha and other participants. And you've experienced this as well, right? Because it's something so sacred, even distortions like opening your eyes in some practices, or playing music, or instructors coming and touching you and pushing you into a posture. So I feel that, because you're simply seeing it as a practice form or as a physical practice, which is why you feel comfortable doing this.
Right.
Now, what Sadhguru says is that it's actually, in a way, communication between you and the universal. Now, if you're in an intimate conversation with the universal, with the ultimate, would you like someone touching you or disturbing you, or, sort of interfering in any way with that? So even the way we offer our practices, you know, we'll never speak while we're doing the practice. Because I've seen this, it's very common. People are doing the practice and instructors are giving the instructions at the same time, like they're talking and doing the postures, which is something you would never see at Isha, because it's completely it's almost blasphemous to see that for us, because you know, we feel that it's so violating of the profoundness of the practice that it is. Yeah.
You know, this is huge. And I think that when you, I mean, I had tears in my eyes actually when you pointed out that this is a very intimate communication between you, the individual, and the cosmos. And when you
Yeah.
hear it like that, when that really lands in your ears, there is no way that you're going to think that it's okay to fiddle with it this way, or like you say, go and, you know, interfere with the person, touch them, move them, open your eyes, talk, do you just, it just wouldn't even occur to you to interfere
Yeah.
with that kind of intimacy.
Yeah.
And I think that you put it so beautifully. I've never heard it said like that. You have put it so beautifully, and I hope that for the people who hear this, that they really get that sense of deep joy and reverence, and that it really touches them at its spiritual depth, because that is what it's about. So thank you very much.